Chapter 1. Judge Thompson's voice resonated through the hushed courtroom. Judge Thompson, with a heavy heart, sentences 14-year-old Jamal Anderson to death. A collective gasp swept through the crowded room. Jamal's mother, Sharon, let out a piercing cry of anguish, collapsing to her knees. "No, he's just a baby. He's innocent." Jamal sat frozen, his small hands trembling as two hulking officers gripped his arms. "But, please," he stammered, his voice choked with fear. "I didn't do anything." The white prosecutor, Mr. Harrison, smirked, leaning back in his chair. He didn't even bother to conceal his satisfaction. The jury, composed entirely of white individuals, sat rigidly, avoiding eye contact. They knew deep down that something was terribly wrong, but none dared to speak up. Judge Thompson smirked. "Take him away." The officers yanked Jamal to his feet. His sneakers scraped against the polished floor as they dragged him away. Sharon pleaded, desperate. "You can't do this. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence?" Judge Thompson retorted, his voice laced with mockery. "Evidence? The jury has rendered their verdict. Justice has been served." He leaned back, a cruel grin spreading across his face, as Jamal's mother sobbed uncontrollably. The prosecutor gathered his files, humming a jaunty tune as if this were just another routine day. The officers shoved Jamal toward the exit. The doors swung open, revealing a waiting prison van. His fate was sealed. The courtroom was silent except for the slow, satisfied exhale of Judge Thompson. His thin lips curved into a barely perceptible smirk. Judge Thompson, with a heavy heart, sentences 14-year-old Jamal Anderson to death. The room erupted in gasps and cries. Sharon shrieked, "No, my baby. Please no." She lunged forward, but two guards restrained her, preventing her from reaching her son. Her face was drenched in tears. Jamal stared in disbelief, his chest heaving as he struggled to breathe. He turned to his lawyer, Mr. Davies, but the man refused to meet his gaze. Jamal whispered, his voice trembling, "Mr. Davies? Please say something." Mr. Davies, a court-appointed public defender, kept his eyes fixed on the table. He nervously adjusted his tie, refusing to acknowledge the terror in Jamal's voice. Jamal pleaded, panic rising within him. "Tell them I didn't do it. I didn't do it." "Mr." Davies cleared his throat, but remained silent. Sharon, furious, shook Mr. Davies. "You're his lawyer. Defend him." Mr. Davies finally looked up at the judge, his face pale. He simply shook his head. "The jury has spoken." His voice was soft, almost robotic. The white prosecutor smirked, snapping his briefcase shut as if this were just another case, another notch on his belt. "Justice has been served, Your Honor," the prosecutor said casually. Jamal looked around desperately. The jury, all white, sat rigidly, their eyes glued to their laps. They knew this was wrong. They knew there was no real evidence. But no one spoke up. Jamal's voice cracked. "I was at home that night. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything." Sharon pleaded, sobbing. The evidence was fake. The fingerprints didn't match. The surveillance footage was blurry. There was no DNA. Judge Thompson sighed mockingly. "Yet here we are," Sharon raged. "Because my son is black. That's why." A few murmurs rippled through the courtroom, but Judge Thompson banged the gavel repeatedly, silencing the dissent. "Enough," Judge Thompson said sternly. "Take him away." Two officers grabbed Jamal's arms. He screamed, struggling. "Mom, help me." Charon screamed, "No, you can't do this." The officers dragged Jamal toward the exit, his sneakers scraping against the marble floor as the courtroom watched in complete silence. The doors swung open, revealing a black prison van waiting outside. Jamal kicked and fought, but it was useless. He saw his mother collapsing on the floor, her screams echoing as the doors slammed shut behind him. Judge Thompson smirked, leaning back, savoring the moment as two officers dragged Jamal away. Jamal screamed, kicking, "Mom, please don't let them do this." Sharon was on her knees, sobbing. "Somebody stop this." The white prosecutor grinned. The jury sat frozen in guilt. Judge Thompson smirked. Another black life ruined. Another victory for the corrupt system. Justice has been served, Judge Thompson said mockingly. Boom! The courtroom doors burst open with such force that the walls seemed to tremble. A powerful female voice echoed through the room. Not so fast. A tall black woman in a sharp navy blue suit strode in, her heels clicking like gunshots against the floor. She radiated power. This was Olivia Carter, Jamal's aunt, one of the top human rights lawyers in the country. Olivia held up a thick folder. This trial is a sham. I have proof that this entire case was a fraud. The courtroom gasped. The prosecutor's smirk vanished. Judge Thompson shifted uncomfortably in his chair. This is highly inappropriate. Security, remove her, Judge Thompson said, annoyed. Olivia grinned, raising her voice. There was no escape. Olivia waved the folder. I have irrefutable evidence that the fingerprints, witness statements, and DNA reports were fabricated. This wasn't a trial. It was a modern-day lynching. Murmurs turned into shouts. The jury looked horrified. The prosecutor paled. Olivia stepped closer, her eyes burning. And guess what, Your Honor? She slapped the document onto his desk. We traced bank transactions linked to you. Bribes. Deals. You were paid to make sure Jamal was convicted. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Jamal whispered, wide-eyed, They paid you to kill me? Judge Thompson's face turned red, his hands shaking as he pounded the gavel. This is ridiculous. Get her out of here. Judge Thompson sputtered. Olivia grinned. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. But you are. She snapped her fingers. Doors slammed open again. FBI agents flooded in. Judge Thompson, you're under arrest for bribery, conspiracy, and abuse of power, the lead FBI agent announced. Handcuffs snapped around his wrists. The once powerful judge was now shaking, his face drenched in sweat. No, wait. I was just... Judge Thompson stammered. The FBI agent yanked him up. Save it for your trial. Jamal said coldly. I hope they're fair to you. The courtroom erupted in cheers and shouts. Reporters flashed cameras. The jury looked ashamed. The prosecutor ran out. The guards dragging Jamal quickly let go. Sharon, sobbing, hugged Jamal. My baby is free. Jamal, still shaking, looked at Olivia, his savior. Thank you, Auntie, he said, his voice breaking. Olivia smiled, ruffling his hair. No one's ever going to do this to you again. Jamal walked out a free boy, but the world would never forget what happened. Chapter 2. Jamal walked out of the courtroom, his mother's arms wrapped tightly around him. Tears of relief streamed down her face. The corrupt judge, now in handcuffs, was shoved into a police car, his smirk completely gone. Olivia said, This isn't just about Jamal. How many more innocent black boys have suffered in silence? No more. People outside the courtroom erupted in cheers. Signs waved, justice for Jamal, end corruption. This moment was being broadcasted live. The truth was out, and people everywhere were watching. This story isn't just a video, it's a movement. Will you be part of it? Jamal and his mother returned home to a small, modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. The streets were lined with aging buildings, and the sounds of children playing filled the air. Though it wasn't much, it was their sanctuary, a place where they could feel safe and loved. The phone rang incessantly as Sharon tried to settle Jamal back into their familiar surroundings. Friends, family, and even strangers called to express their support and relief. We're so proud of you, Jamal, Sharon's best friend, Maria, said over the phone. And Olivia, she's a true hero. I don't know what we would have done without her, Sharon replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Jamal sat quietly on the couch, overwhelmed by the events of the past few weeks. He couldn't shake the image of the courtroom, the faces of the jury, and the cold, calculating look in Judge Thompson's eyes. Olivia arrived later that evening, her energy filling the small apartment. She hugged Jamal tightly. You doing okay, kiddo? Jamal nodded, though he still felt numb. I don't understand why they did this, Annie Olivia. Why me? Olivia sighed, pulling up a chair next to him. It's complicated, Jamal. There are people in this world who don't see you as an individual. They see you as a stereotype, a threat, and they exploit the system to keep you down. But it's not fair, Jamal said, his voice barely a whisper. No, it's not, Olivia agreed. But that's why we have to fight. We have to fight for justice, for equality, for a world where your skin color doesn't determine your fate. Olivia stayed for hours, talking to Jamal and Sharon, reassuring them that they were safe and that things would get better. She explained that the fight wasn't over, that they still had to deal with the aftermath of the trial, the media attention, and the potential for further threats. I'll be with you every step of the way, Olivia promised. You're not alone in this. As Olivia left, Sharon looked at Jamal, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and concern. Your aunt is an amazing woman, Jamal. You're lucky to have her. I know, Mom, Jamal said. I don't know what I'd do without either of you. That night, Jamal tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. He replayed the events of the trial over and over in his mind, trying to make sense of it all. He couldn't understand how people could be so cruel, so prejudiced, so willing to destroy an innocent life. He knew that Olivia was right. The fight wasn't over. He had to find a way to turn his experience into something positive, to use his voice to speak out against injustice, and to help others who were facing similar struggles. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He was scared, but he was also determined. He would not let them break him. He would not let them silence him. He would fight for his future, and for the future of all young black boys who deserved a chance to live their lives without fear. The next morning, Jamal woke up with a newfound sense of purpose. He knew that he had a long and difficult road ahead of him, but he was ready to face it head on. He got out of bed, put on his clothes, and went into the kitchen where Sharon was already making breakfast. Good morning, sleepyhead, Sharon said, smiling. Good morning, Mom, Jamal replied. I was thinking, Jamal said, sitting down at the table. I want to do something to help other kids who are going through what I went through. Sharon smiled, her eyes shining with pride. That's a wonderful idea, Jamal. What did you have in mind? I don't know yet, Jamal admitted, but I want to talk to Auntie Olivia about it. Maybe she can help me figure something out. I'm sure she will, Sharon said. She's always been there for us. After breakfast, Jamal called Olivia and told her about his idea. Olivia was thrilled. That's fantastic, Jamal, she said. I'd be happy to help you get started. I know some organizations that are working to support young people who have been affected by the justice system. I can put you in touch with them. That would be great, Auntie Olivia, Jamal said. Thank you. Over the next few weeks, Jamal worked closely with Olivia and several organizations to develop a program that would provide support and resources to young people who had been wrongfully accused or unfairly treated by the justice system. He spoke at community meetings, schools, and churches, sharing his story and raising awareness about the injustices that were prevalent in the system. He became a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of hope for those who had been forgotten. It wasn't easy. He faced criticism, skepticism, and even threats. But he refused to be deterred. He knew that he was making a difference, that he was helping to change the system one person at a time. And as he continued his work, he found healing and strength in the knowledge that he was using his experience to make the world a better place. He was no longer just a victim. He was a survivor, a fighter, and a champion for justice. Chapter 3. The media attention surrounding Jamal's case intensified, turning him into an overnight sensation. News outlets from around the country clamored for interviews, eager to hear his story and highlight the injustices he had faced, while Olivia shielded him from the most sensationalist outlets. She recognized the importance of using the platform to raise awareness about systemic issues. One of the first major interviews was with a respected journalist from the New York Times. Jamal, initially nervous, found himself speaking passionately about his experiences, the flaws in the justice system, and the need for reform. It's not just about me, he emphasized during the interview. There are so many other young black men and women who are facing the same kind of discrimination. We need to change the system so that everyone has a fair chance. The article was published on the front page, generating a wave of support and outrage. Donations poured into the organizations Olivia had connected him with, and politicians began to take notice. However, The increased visibility also brought unwanted attention. Hate mail and threatening messages started arriving, filled with racist slurs and violent threats. Sharon became increasingly worried, but Jamal remained resolute. "We can't let them scare us into silence, Mom," he said. "That's what they want." Olivia, ever vigilant, worked with security experts to ensure their safety. They installed a security system in their apartment and took precautions to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Amidst the media frenzy, Olivia focused on ensuring that Jamal could still be a kid. She encouraged him to continue his studies, spend time with his friends, and pursue his hobbies. He still loved basketball, and Olivia made sure he had time to practice and play with his teammates. One afternoon, as Jamal was shooting hoops at the local park, a group of kids approached him. They were younger than him, and he recognized them from the neighborhood. "Hey, Jamal," one of them said, "we saw you on TV. You're like a hero." Jamal shrugged, embarrassed. "I'm just trying to do what's right." "We think it's cool," another kid said. "We want to help." Jamal smiled. "Really? What do you want to do?" The kids had all sorts of ideas, from organizing neighborhood cleanups to tutoring younger students. Jamal was inspired by their enthusiasm and decided to create a youth leadership program. With Olivia's help, he secured funding from a local foundation and launched the Jamal Anderson Youth Empowerment Initiative. The program provided leadership training, mentoring, and community service opportunities for young people in underserved communities. The initiative quickly gained popularity, attracting participants from all over the city. Jamal found himself working alongside other young activists, learning from their experiences and sharing his own. One of the participants was a 16-year-old girl named Aisha. Aisha had been involved in gang activity before joining the program, but she was determined to turn her life around. "I used to think that the only way to survive was to be tough, to be ruthless," Aisha told Jamal one day. "But you showed me that there's another way. You showed me that we can fight for what's right without resorting to violence." Jamal was deeply moved by Aisha's words. He realized that his work was not just about changing the system, but about empowering individuals to become agents of change in their own communities. As the Jamal Anderson Youth Empowerment Initiative grew, it attracted the attention of national leaders. Jamal was invited to speak at conferences, meet with politicians, and even testify before Congress. He used these opportunities to advocate for policies that would address the root causes of injustice, such as poverty, lack of educational opportunities, and discriminatory policing practices. He called for investments in communities, reforms to the criminal justice system, and an end to racial profiling. "We need to create a society where every young person has the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of their race or zip code," he declared during his testimony before Congress. His words resonated with many, and he gained the support of lawmakers from both parties. Legislation was introduced to address some of the issues he had raised, and momentum began to build for meaningful reform. Chapter 4. Despite the progress being made, the memory of the trial continued to haunt Jamal. He couldn't shake the feeling that Judge Thompson and Prosecutor Harrison had gotten away with their crimes. Olivia assured him that they were both facing serious consequences. Judge Thompson had been disbarred and was awaiting trial on charges of bribery and conspiracy. Prosecutor Harrison had been fired from his job and was under investigation for misconduct. But Jamal wanted more than just punishment. He wanted to expose the systemic corruption that had allowed them to abuse their power in the first place. With Olivia's guidance, he began researching the history of corruption in the local court system. He discovered a pattern of misconduct, with judges and prosecutors regularly engaging in unethical behavior, often targeting Black defendants. He decided to launch a campaign to demand accountability and transparency in the court system. He organized protests, filed lawsuits, and called for a federal investigation into the matter. The campaign gained widespread support, attracting activists, lawyers, and community leaders. They uncovered evidence of widespread corruption, including bribery, perjury, and obstruction of justice. The evidence was presented to the Department of Justice, which launched a formal investigation. The investigation led to the indictment of several judges, prosecutors, and other court officials. The trials were highly publicized, and the public watched in disbelief as the extent of the corruption was revealed. The trials resulted in convictions and sentences for many of those involved. The exposure of the corruption had a profound impact on the community. It restored faith in the justice system and sent a message that no one was above the law. Jamal's work had helped to bring about meaningful change, but he knew that the fight for justice was far from over. He was committed to continuing his work, advocating for reforms to the criminal justice system and empowering young people to become agents of change in their own communities. One evening, as Jamal was preparing to speak at a community rally, he received a phone call from an unknown number. He hesitated before answering it, remembering the threatening messages he had received in the past. "Hello," he said cautiously. "Jamal?" a voice said on the other end. "Who is this?" Jamal asked. "It's Prosecutor Harrison," the voice said. Jamal was stunned. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice filled with anger. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry," Harrison said. "I know I did wrong, and I'm paying for it now. But I want you to know that I regret what happened." Jamal didn't know what to say. He had spent so much time hating Harrison, and now he was hearing him express remorse. "Why are you telling me this?" Jamal asked. "Because you deserve to know," Harrison said. "You deserve to know that I was wrong and that I'm sorry for what I did to you and your family." Jamal thought for a moment. "I appreciate your apology," he said finally, "but it doesn't change what happened. You almost ruined my life." "I know," Harrison said, "and I'll never be able to make up for that. But I hope that one day you can forgive me." Jamal hung up the phone, feeling a mix of emotions. He was still angry, but he also felt a sense of closure. He realized that holding on to hatred would only hold him back. He needed to move on, to focus on the future. He walked onto the stage at the community rally, feeling a sense of purpose and determination. He shared his story, spoke about the importance of justice, and called on the community to continue fighting for change. As he spoke, he looked out at the crowd, seeing faces of all ages and backgrounds. He knew that they were all united in their desire for a better future, and he knew that together they could make a difference. They could create a society where justice was not just a word, but a reality for all. Chapter 5. Years passed. Jamal continued his work as an advocate for justice, becoming a nationally recognized figure. He graduated from college with honors and went on to law school, determined to become a lawyer who would fight for the rights of the marginalized and the oppressed. Olivia remained a constant presence in his life, a mentor, friend, and confidant. She continued to take on challenging cases, fighting for justice in courtrooms across the country. Sharon, now a grandmother, beamed with pride at Jamal's accomplishments. She had become an outspoken advocate for criminal justice reform, sharing her story at community events and legislative hearings. The Jamal Anderson Youth Empowerment Initiative continued to thrive, providing opportunities for young people to develop their leadership skills and make a positive impact on their communities. Many of its graduates went on to college, pursuing careers in law, education, and public service. One day, Jamal received a letter from Judge Thompson. He hesitated before opening it, unsure what to expect. The letter was brief and to the point. Thompson wrote that he had been reflecting on his life and his actions, and that he had come to realize the extent of the harm he had caused. He expressed remorse for his role in Jamal's case and asked for forgiveness. Jamal read the letter several times, feeling a mix of emotions. He had struggled for years to forgive Thompson, to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed him. He decided to write a response. He thanked Thompson for his letter and acknowledged his remorse. He wrote that he had forgiven him, not for Thompson's sake, but for his own. He needed to move on, to let go of the past and embrace the future. A few weeks later, Jamal received a phone call from a woman who identified herself as Thompson's daughter. She asked if she could meet with him. Jamal agreed, curious to hear what she had to say. They met at a coffee shop. Thompson's daughter was a young woman, about Jamal's age. She told him that her father had been deeply affected by his actions and that he had spent his time in prison reflecting on his mistakes. She said that her father had asked her to reach out to Jamal and express his sincere apologies. She also wanted to learn more about Jamal's work and to find ways to support his efforts to promote justice. Jamal was impressed by her sincerity and her commitment to making a difference. He shared his story with her and told her about the Jamal Anderson Youth Empowerment Initiative. Thompson's daughter became involved in the initiative, volunteering her time and donating resources. She became a valuable asset to the organization, bringing her skills and expertise to the table. Jamal realized that even from the depths of darkness, hope could emerge. Even those who had caused harm could find redemption and contribute to the cause of justice. As Jamal continued his work, he remained grounded in his experiences, remembering the injustices he had faced and the lessons he had learned. He used his voice to advocate for change, to empower young people, and to create a society where justice was not just a dream, but a reality for all. And he knew that as long as he remained committed to that vision, he could make a difference in the world, one person, one community, one case at a time. Chapter 6. Years later, Jamal stood in a courtroom, not as a defendant, but as a lawyer. He was representing a young black man who had been wrongly accused of a crime, just as he had been. He looked at the jury, a diverse group of men and women, and he felt a sense of hope. He knew that they would listen to the evidence, weigh the facts, and make a just decision. He presented his case with passion and conviction, drawing on his own experiences to connect with the jury and to convey the humanity of his client. He argued that the prosecution's case was based on flimsy evidence, biased testimony, and racial stereotypes. He argued that his client was innocent and that he deserved to be free. The jury deliberated for several hours before reaching a verdict. They found his client not guilty. Jamal embraced his client, tears streaming down his face. He had won. He had saved another young black man from the clutches of the justice system. As he walked out of the courtroom, he saw Olivia waiting for him. She smiled and gave him a hug. "I'm so proud of you." "Jamal," she said, "you're a true champion for justice." Jamal smiled back. "I couldn't have done it without you. Auntie Olivia," he said. "You've been my inspiration, my mentor, and my friend." They walked together into the sunshine, feeling a sense of gratitude and fulfillment. They knew that the fight for justice was never-ending, but they were committed to continuing the struggle. One case, one client, one community at a time. Jamal's journey had been long and arduous, filled with challenges and setbacks, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference in the world. He was a survivor, a fighter, and a champion for justice, and he would continue to fight for the rights of the marginalized and the oppressed until justice was a reality for all. This is the end of the story. I hope this meets your expectations. Let me know if you'd like any specific sections expanded further or modified in any way.